Saw a comment left by our girl AnneMarie Miles, and she's apparently a contest winner of contest number 223. She wrote a short story, Cerulean. Our boy Aaron Chin won 229, so they're not that far apart. She's got 188 comments, 187 likes. Let's take a look at her story. The story contains sensitive comment. Well, I guess fair warning for anybody watching this in the future or watching it now. I have no idea what's going to be in this story. I'm reading these cold for the first time. It says suspense, drama, and horror. It's a horror story. It could get graphic. It doesn't mention any specific trigger warnings, but just FYI, if you're uneasy or just a bit sensitive about, I guess, anything horror related, murder, kidnapping, I don't know, any kind of that kind of stuff, maybe avoid. Switch over to a different Twitch stream. But for the rest of us, let's take a look and see what this is about. This is Cerulean, right? Cerulean by AnneMarie Miles. The door is cerulean, a bright and vibrant blue. But really, it is the color of my sudden uneasiness. The feeling creeps up me slowly, jumps out at me dauntingly, and I'm frozen in it. If the door were a mirror, and how I wish it were as innocent as a mirror, I would see my face reflected back to me, and it would tell me to run. I'm not sure what's more jarring, the fact that this door is a clashing contrast to the rest of the library decor, or the fact that I've never noticed the path we took to get here before. I suppose there are better things to do freshman year than look for the oddities and notice the details inside the university library. Or maybe it's the subtle shift in his gaze that is so jarring. The way his grip on me transforms, and the way his voice now suddenly holds something heavy, concealed behind his hardened whispers. It seems impossible to retreat now, and even if I had the courage to turn and run away, following my screaming gut all the way down the stairs and out the library doors, there's still a part of me that is curious, hopeful, lustful. Wasn't dating a professor supposed to feel dangerous? Wasn't that how it felt just moments ago when he pressed me up against the wall of shelved books downstairs and kissed me? And I thought to myself, is there anything more thrilling than this? Wasn't it that same exciting feeling that I felt when he'd whispered into my neck that he had a secret to show me, and I eagerly followed him up the stairs? I had thought it was thrilling before, when we were nothing but flirty eyes and lingering bodies inside an empty lecture hall room, neither of us willing to be the first to say goodbye. He chipped away at his desk with his nails, while I'd fingered it, tracing circles and pathways across the dark mahogany wood, each stroke a question. What would your skin think of this? Meanwhile, our mouths said frivolous things, silly words about the weather and hometowns and restaurants off campus, things that had nothing to do with anthropology assignments. Between those words, our silences begged the other to stay just a little longer, so we could eventually, maybe, use our mouths for other things. We were testing the waters then, seeing how far we would swim out before turning back. It turned out this professor could swim all the way out to my dorm room, somewhere I'd never seen another professor go. "Let me take you to the library tonight," he'd whispered. "I can get us in after it's closed." His voice had been desperate and demanding. like I could break him if I said no. I wanted to savor the power I had over him in that moment, like licking the peanut butter off of a spoon. But there was no chance I would say no. I would have given him my heart on a silver platter right then. I was breathless when I said, "What time?" Hours later, under a hazy orange street lamp, I'd watched his fingers unlock the double doors like a jungle cat eyeing its prey. I wanted to lunge at them, feel them unlocking my body, but even then, just moments ago, I still hadn't been sure. That dangerous, thrilling ripple somewhere within me undulating like a wave. There's nothing illegal about doing the things we both wanted to do. Just a school policy that both of us treated like nothing but a suggestion. When the doors pulled open, the scent of the library engulfed me. I read somewhere that the smell of old books is actually the smell of organic matter reacting to light and heat, a decomposition of wood pulp. But really, it is the scent of my body on fire. When I told him, he only smiled, running his finger across the spines as he guided me down one of the aisles. All of these stories dying beneath our fingertips, and we get to live a whole other life just by splitting them open. When I'd heard those words, I thought he was a sexy young anthropologic library genius, literary genius. And I couldn't believe he'd chosen me. In that moment, I was certain I'd let him split me open and read me like one of those books. But now, there is an edginess to this thrill, a sense of danger that hadn't surfaced yet, a creature rising from the midnight zone, hair standing up on the back of my neck, or is that his breath? I feel my bones run cold, like I'm standing on a precipice. If I open that door, I might freefall right into the sky. I've never shown anyone this before. He lies, but I barely register his words, my mind lost in a tumbleweed of disregarded warnings. From my mother, from my friends, from school advisories, the university campus newspaper, 3 freshman girls still missing. He wraps his arms around my waist like we're comfortable lovers now, like the one kiss we shared downstairs turned our student-teacher relationship into something more intimate. I leaned into it, still playing the part of the brave girl. I thought I wanted that. I followed him up those stairs, wanting just that. There's still a part of me that does. Fear has stolen many of these experiences from me, and I'd promised this year would be different, didn't I? I shouldn't take hold of the doorknob, but I do, and I hear him giggle behind me. It sounds like victory. It sounds like good girl. There's no creak when I turn it. The handle glides smoothly, and I hear it unlatch. In another life, I push the door open, and there is a room with a small round table sitting in the middle. It is adorned with a white cloth and candles, and there is a violinist playing a soft, soothing song. From somewhere, a perfectly prepared steak meal is delivered, and we slice it slowly with our knives while drinking wine and slurring out delectable secrets. In that life, we make love about 1,000 love stories bound in leather and spend years happily together. After I graduate, we get married and have 2 children, Olive and Iris. We grow old together, and tonight becomes a treasured story about the romantic night when we fell in love. A story that belongs in one of those books downstairs. In another life, I open the door, and there's a boring room with a game of chess set up for us on a table in the corner. We play a few rounds, him winning twice before he finally lets me win once. I pretend to love it, and we date in secret for a few months before things fizzle out. Maybe there's a dramatic ending, and I spend a summer lovesick and cursing his name, knowing I'll never forget the year I dated my college professor. In another life, I let the door handle go and sprint down the stairs, running faster than I ever have all the way back down to my dorm room. I tell my roommate all about it and wonder if I let my fear make a fool out of myself again. In this life, I push the door open, and there is a room that has no table, no white cloth, no chessboard. There's a room with 4 walls. Ones I wish had mirrors on them so I could see my reflection. The realization settling in my eyes would tell me there's a shark in the water, to swim fast, even though I know it's too late. They would tell me the truth, that I might never see the color cerulean again. That was really good. Stark difference in storytelling from the last one we read, the gingerbread. I already forgot it. The gingerbread cookies is what it was. Where the gingerbread cookies was a little bit interpretive and not too open-ended or confusing. This one isn't very confusing or interpretive at all. You know exactly what's going on. In fact, the story very early on telegraphs what's likely about to happen without ever getting graphic with it. It kind of leaves that part to your imagination, and I love that. I think stories work best when it allows the reader to fill in a lot of the blanks. It gives you just enough information for you to understand and comprehend what you need to in order to appreciate the story. And then for everything else, let the reader fly. The reader just kind of fills in the gaps. It's much like painting, right? When you look at a beautiful painting of a mountaintop, or, for example, from a distance, it looks very intricate and detailed, and you wonder to yourself, wow, like, how does someone paint such a realistic, detailed painting of a mountain like that, or a landscape, or even a portrait of somebody? Like, how do they get those fine little details in there that look so real? But then you get closer and you zoom in, right? You look and you see that there's really not fine detail at all. It's just strokes of color, broad strokes of color that have been assembled in such a way that suggest a landscape. They suggest a mountaintop with its composition, with its color choice. And it's you, the viewer, that's filling in the blanks and putting the details in there to make it real. Same thing with storytelling and writing. Very much the same. You could be very detailed in your writing and the way you depict the story, but you don't have to be. And this does a great job in showing us the library without being too detailed about it. We know what a library looks like. We don't need to know the specific detail of the layout of this library. We don't need to know the specific clothing or anything like that. We just get glimpses of things. We get glimpses of an orange street lamp. We get glimpses of a door opening into a standard library and aisles of books, and we know the vibe of a library already. We can already fill in those details ourselves. We get glimpses of feelings and vibes. We get suggestions, and then our minds get to fill in the blanks. And this story did such a great job with that. There's no twists or turns. There's no surprises. There's just this growing feeling of dread and regret. And that sickening feeling you get that once you realize you messed up, You want so badly to escape, and you start thinking of another life, another version of yourself that made a different choice, that puts you in a better position, or maybe a different position that may not have been better, but it certainly isn't as bad as the situation you're in. But you're not. You can't escape, and you're kind of stuck with your predicament. Really well written. I love it. I think this was great. And I like how it ended. Because it, again, it didn't need a twist. It didn't need anything like that. It's just kind of a bitter ending of like that feeling of regret, that pining of I wish I had done something different, and now I'm facing the consequence, period, and sitting with that. I got worried there in the middle of the story because it did say, it did give us a disclaimer that the story contains sensitive content. I understand why they said that now, but I didn't know what they meant at the beginning. And once we got to the middle of it, I was getting kind of concerned this might get a little bit, this might get a little bit uncomfortable. A little bit grabby and aggressive, so I'm glad it didn't get detailed there. I'm glad it just left to your suggestion. Who knows? She might get murdered right away. This guy might do more. Who knows? It's up to your imagination, your interpretation, what happens next, to be honest. And you know what I do like? I do like that this story doesn't answer the question of what happens in that room. We have no idea what happens in that room. And technically, this final line right here, this final sentence says, I might never see the color cerulean again. She doesn't even know. This character, our character, doesn't even know her fate either. It's an empty room. Yes, there was a newspaper of 3 missing girls, but this could honestly be all unrelated. Look at me being an optimist. This could be unrelated. Now, it's a horror story, so it probably didn't end happily ever after with a castle and servants and things like that and unicorns, but we don't know that it did or didn't. It absolutely could have. I like the fact that what happened was not answered. So hey, maybe nothing bad. Maybe she just went in there and they recorded a TikTok and then they left, and weeks later she realized, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be dating this professor. This seems not like a great relationship to have long term. This seems like a thrill of the moment type relationship. And she leaves him. And then eventually she finds herself meeting someone else. Somewhere. Perhaps at a coffee shop. Perhaps at a conference of some type. Who knows? Love it. Let's look at the comments, actually. Mind the scrolling. 52 submissions. Hold on, let's go take a look at that before we wrap up. I read this as Fresh Prince. Fresh Pine Creek's Parked Gossip, episode 17. Oh, what is she doing? Maybe that's just a fun title. That's interesting. Submitted to a contest. This one didn't win. Traffic. Spilling the Tea. Monster Goals. Yeah, she's an excellent writer. Elf Off the Shelf. Oh, maybe we want to read that one. That sounds pretty cool. That's already suggestive. That's suggestive already. Dad's Cereal. Blizzard. Shortlisted for Contest 227. Hey. Hey. Well, let's go back to the comments of Cerulean. And, the door was Cerulean, right? The door is Cerulean, a bright and vibrant blue, but really is the color of my sudden uneasiness. Yeah, I think we all I think most of us know that feeling that we get when something just doesn't feel quite right. We didn't feel it before, but then once we cross a certain threshold, it starts bubbling up, right? It just kind of hits us out of nowhere. And we just start feeling like, I don't know, this is sus. Anyway. Ann Wilkins has 10 upvotes on this. Says, oh, so clever and sinister. Very creepy and spooky. I mean, yeah. It does kind of give you a very uncomfortable feeling while you're reading it. Great ending with the repetition of In Another Life. Love that it came back to that cerulean color. Congrats on your win. Yeah, I think that was a great way to tie it back in. We opened up with cerulean and we ended with cerulean. That's a great circle packet. Speaking of tying the beginning to the ending, I think that's one of my favorite things in short stories is when the ending of the short story really ties back into the beginning and really feels like everything is one complete story. One of my, my best friend is a writer, and we both recently submitted some short stories to a contest, not to Readsy, to a different website. And I got to read the short story she submitted, and she did something like that too, where the beginning tied directly into the ending. It was brilliant. I absolutely loved what she had done with that short story. It's one of my favorites that I'd read. And I'm not just saying that because she's my best friend. The thing about best friends who are also writers is that you have carte blanche to just tear each other apart and be brutally honest. And that's what you should do for all of your writer friends. You should not be gentle at all whatsoever. You tear them apart. They give you something to read and they ask you for feedback. Give them the feedback. Tell them what didn't work for you. Because remember, it's all subjective. Every reader is going to get something different out of it. Every reader is going to interpret and perceive the message of the story a little bit differently, or have different opinions. That's just for everything in life, not just writing and reading. So that should just be taken under consideration regardless, that any feedback provided is only just your opinion. But at the same time, it's still very helpful, because what a writer really needs from that feedback is just to understand, what was your reaction? Was it good, bad? How did you feel in certain moments? And what wasn't working for you? And what was working for you? Because these are the things that are going to help the author, help the writer, understand where they need to edit, where they need to go back and revise and change. And maybe they don't need to at all, but if they see something's not working for one person, maybe they say, well, you know what, it didn't work for them, maybe I'll keep it anyway. But if they get like 2 or 3 people reading it and all 3 of them concede that, yeah, this part didn't work for me, that's a flag for the writer to say, hey, you know what, maybe I do need to revise this part. Maybe I need to change it. Maybe I need to look closely into their feedback and understand why they didn't like it. Maybe we need to change it a little bit. So it's helpful. And same thing for the wins. It's not always about what sucks. It's also about what is successful as well. What's winning? Because when you point out the things that you do like and what is working, that's also helpful to let the writer know, hey, I don't need to edit this part. I don't need to revise this part. This part is working, and this is a good measuring stick for other parts of my story to help me make sure that I'm achieving this in other parts of my story as well, using this as an example. So anyway, yeah, absolutely love that it circled back. Helen Smith says this is compelling because there are so many possibilities. The lecturer really could turn out to be a monster. On the other hand, he may simply be a lustful professor. That's what I'm talking about, Helen. The story is open-ended, technically. We don't know what happened to our main character, to our POV girl. We just don't. Underneath all the excitement, there are misgivings about what the MC is doing. At the back of her mind is the knowledge about the 3 girls. Yes, Helen, exactly. This story is obviously written from the sole perspective of our main character. Right? And so the thoughts and the feelings that we're getting are our main character's thoughts and feelings and paranoias. Our main character is aware that there are 3 missing girls. Our main character has heard cautionary warnings from her mother and friends and that's not abnormal. Everybody will tell you, oh, be careful about dating this person. Be careful about doing this. Just, everybody will always give their advice on everything in life. But this is causing paranoia for the main character, which is coming to us. And we're feeling it too, because we know this stuff goes down in real life. We know this happens to real people. Or this may have happened to us as the readers. And so we're feeding off of it too, but technically the story is open-ended. We don't know what really happened. And these could have just been just that, paranoia. May not have actualized. I like the way you describe the smell of the library. Here it takes on a creepy edge, and the books become organic matter decaying. Yeah, I loved that imagery. I liked the way they described that. Of course, I didn't really know that about, the smell of paper and what the science is behind that. But that was a great way of not only giving us some fun knowledge, trivia, in a sense, but really adding on to the atmosphere and the feeling, the foreboding in this story as it crept on, There's something about power here too and its potential abuse. If he really cares for her, he would wait until the time was right, respect the realities of the situation and not exploit them. Aw, dude. Yeah, this guy definitely doesn't care. He is horny with a capital H. He is excited and ready to get some, or he's got murderous intent. We don't truly know. The MC seems vulnerable. Seems a vulnerable young woman on the threshold of life, still uncertain, feeling her way, learning to trust her instincts. If only we did that more often. Yeah. Hindsight's always 20/20. Open to all sorts of interpretations for me, asking all kinds of questions. You pack a lot into the story, AnneMarie. Great read, really got me thinking. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. Humble Sparrow agrees. When one party has a position of authority, this behavior is predatory no matter how flattered the other party feels about it. Excellent detail, the plot thickening at just the right moment. AnneMarie Miles, the author herself, coming in. Ugh, this is a lovely comment, Helen. Thank you. Okay. No one writes desire like you, Sister Scribbler, Rebecca Miles says. Whether it's desire for the forbidden, for the new, or for something dark, you have us breathing hard in your grasp as we twist from poetic expectation to the thorn prick of terrible realization. This is your forte. This right here. Go and write that book. Go and write the book. Now, a good idea or a good short story could easily blossom into a large, full novel, or maybe even a novella. I don't think all stories or good ideas could translate, though. Maybe this one could, but I feel what makes this short story very successful is the fact that it is short. And because it's so short, we're instantly grabbed and trapped into this feeling of dread or boding. I think that would be a little bit more difficult to do for a longer book, although I say difficult. There's plenty of books that have those feelings in them. Mysteries, murder mysteries, things like that. You could definitely write a longer story about this. About this fling between student and professor and how it just kind of increasingly grows uncomfortable and predatory. Or does it? But what I think I like most about this being a short story is that we don't know, and it is open-ended. And I think if you make it longer, I think you would be challenged to continue keeping that conclusion open-ended. Not impossible, just more challenging, more difficult. This was a great, snappy short story. Great, well-written. I wish I could write that well. I don't think I can, but maybe. Enough fraps and late nights with moody music, maybe I could.